I'd like to invite the audience to participate with questions or comments.
Obviously, there appears to be tremendous opportunity for significant return of investment in, I guess, really just salvaging our environment and through sustainable innovation. So how can we as individuals encourage business, investors, government to look into these opportunities, to basically take advantage of the opportunities that exist or the opportunities that can be created and become sustainable? I mean, the example you just gave of the carpet company, I think was wonderful, but we need to push from consumers and how to do this as individuals sitting here who've already set the Kool-Aid toward encouraging this on a broader scale.
Yeah, please.
I'll start. I would say, obviously there's no answer to that, but part of an answer or part of a thing I would say is we don't need to tell other people to do things. We're all connected with organizations. Every one of us here is connected to organizations, whether it's as a volunteer, as a board member, as a customer, as an employee, as a neighbor. Work with them, right? We're all connected with organizations, and every organization can do something, right? A lot easier to work with and influence people that we're connected to, right? So we don't need to, my sense is we don't need to tell people we're not connected to very much because nobody will listen to us. But we're connected with a lot of people. A lot of organizations that do a lot of things. Tell them, work with them, even better than tell them.
Other panelists?
In one sense, it's a question of evangelicalism, right? How do we convince others, right, to follow a particular path? That's a good path. I was thinking of a Dominican priest writing in the 16th century, the Casas, right, Bartolome Casas, who wrote a famous book called The Only Way. His job was to convert Indians into Catholics. And at least his argument was that one doesn't convert people with brute force, one converts them by showing them and how to live, by demonstrating one's own personal behavior, right, that this is a good way as well. And that you don't convert people, you convert people with your good actions, your own behavior. So I think there's part of the answer is there, right, as well. Pardon? Walk the walk, right, as well. So we have to do that, right, and then talking about this conversation that has us. We have to begin the conversation and say, there may be a different way, at least open our eyes to other possibilities. And I think thirdly is we really have to focus upon the institution of education, right, and begin to bring a new set of ideas to the table, right, as well. Now, I listened to Wade Davis at Convocation, who says we need to bring other ways of thinking, other sets of knowledges to the table. He said they're all human responses to how to live well in this world. And we ignore most of them in favor of one particular way of living. He argues very strongly that we ought to begin to think about how do people in various environments live, how do they create sustainable environments as well. Our political philosophies, our way of dealing with each other is still rooted, at least in North America and the Anglosphere, in Thomas Hobbes. We still believe the universe is out to get us, right? And it's a constant war, a civil war, right, as well. Other people don't think that, okay, at the same time, okay, as well. So bringing new ideas to the table, creating opportunities for people to begin to learn from each other. as the staff talked about, the carpet manufacturer idea is an example, right? Now we know, we can now begin to explore and begin to ask questions as well. So I think that's part of the answer. That's all.
I'm curious to hear from David. How do you do this in the marketplace? How do you get people to see the value in terms of sustainable investment?
I don't know if this is on or not.
Yep, just put it in.
Yeah. One of the things that I've found is green investments have gotten a very bad reputation in the investment community, and so we don't even talk about the green aspects of what we're doing. We talk about the profit-making operations of what we're doing. And that's just the language that people speak in our part of the world. So, so the fact that we have a dozen companies that can help on cleaning up water or can help on reducing the amount of energy we're using, or other things, we're investing in those because they're good profit-making opportunities, and that's what we talk about. So after a great deal of money was made in the tech revolution, then green tech became the next tech revolution that everybody was going to make a lot of money on. And other than Tesla, there haven't been very many that have made much money there. And so it's become very much something that people don't want to invest in.
I didn't know Tesla's made any money, have they? I didn't know Tesla had made any money yet.
Well, the owners of the stock have made a lot of money.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true.
Let's put it that way.
I want to hear more from people in the audience as much as possible, yeah? And then you, and then you, and then you, okay? Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering, there seems to be a lot of legal barriers to developing these kind of products. And say like with the electric car, there's a lot of competition, like oil companies and stuff that will limit you. I'm just wondering what kind of resources there are to overcome those kind of barriers, and even within Bureau.
To me, I would look at things like that as, I mean, that's where the need for entrepreneurial thinking comes in. I mean, every business, every industry has barriers. That's what makes an industry, and dealing with barriers creatively, unexpectedly, is where new industries are born. It actually, I think, connects nicely with the question before. How do you convince people, or where do these? Best thing is to make something that works really well. Again, the Grameen Bank example is amazing. Nobody had to preach about the value of microfinance. You make one that really works, and everybody goes, "Oh, that's a good idea." And it spread itself.
Yeah, I'd say too, you're saying, well, where would we find the resources in Peterborough? Just exactly what Ray was just saying. Look within. The resources are inside of you. That's where you're going to find the resources to make that happen. So, and that's what every entrepreneur faces. And so, once you make the step forward, well, then the resources will come to you. If you're making it happen, well, then you'll find that others will get behind you.
Alan?
Yes, in the interface carpet wall, I take it would be fine if it lasts you for more than 15 years. Well, it's good that they take it back when you're done with it. That's definitely a good thing. I take it if you're not done with it after 15 years, that's probably okay.
No, absolutely. Yeah. The idea was to basically, especially for corporate clients, they were now regularly calling on their clients, saying, have your needs changed? Do you need a different kind of product? But they're producing very, very durable product and they're striving for zero waste. And they're very close to it.
Yeah, that's great.
But it's great, but I just want to be realistic about this. I mean, David, you know, this takes huge commitment, and it also takes a lot of patience on behalf of investors that are not always very patient beyond the quarterly. And just like Tesla's experiencing now, Interface was on the brink when they made the transformation. It was touch and go there for a couple of years, because they were actually transitioning to a new business model. So, were it not for Ray Anderson, who still, even after he went public, maintained a huge share there, that he was able to wait it out and transform to that new business, because markets are extremely impatient. And back to your question, what is our sphere of influence? I mean, our investments are a huge sphere of influence, for example, that not many of us know. Not many of us actually know what is it we're investing in. And just to trace and to say, I want to make sure my investments are aligned with my values, and to become actively involved in what is this company that I'm investing in doing, is a huge sphere of influence that can actually redirect the attention of markets. In terms of, oh, so all of a sudden people are finding value in products that aren't out there. I still walk up to TD Bank and I say, okay, I'm looking for sustainable investment. It's pathetic what TD Bank offers at this point, and they apologize for it. They say, the market is not actually demanding this product from us. So that's a huge sphere of influence.
Yes.
These are great couple days. I've noticed something quite interesting over the last 2 days, and how each panel is, we first talked about science and academia, then moved on to policy and law and government, and then now into economics. And throughout all of that, it was a foundation of how we're going to move ourselves forward by engaging everyone in our community. Everyone, every aspect of life, of cultures and everything. And so I kind of, wondered at one point, well, we're in a catch-22 in the sense that we need the time that it takes to engage communities and everybody. Puts us in an interesting moment where we don't have that much time to wait to gather that information, and yet at the same time, we recently see if you don't engage with your communities and you implement things from the top-down system, it doesn't work in policy or even executing environmental strategies. And so, in a way, and then maybe at the very, very end, it's more about, I've discovered maybe today, it's having that one-on-one conversation, but then one-on-one conversation through mass media outlets to then reach that in a quick time frame. And so I just wanted to put that out as a point of departure for conversation, if you can hear that if you think that maybe that is the way to speed up our movements through mass communication, or point of departure for the audience.
So, Emily, you're looking for some path towards a more participative democracy? I mean, is that really what we're saying then?
Yeah, because, with the wind turbine policy in Western Ontario and having that come from a top-down and not engaging the communities, they're actually opposed to wind energy in that area. And then, but that moved very fast, which is what we needed. And so it's kind of just interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you offered a really good example of when you don't engage people and understand where you're going together, there's not going to be buy-in, and resistance will come up in areas where perhaps you didn't anticipate it. I don't know why the Ontario government didn't anticipate that a top-down process, which, by the way, they espoused in terms of you talk about wind energy. My colleague Stephen Hill, he's with Search this week. We're going on our third student in Mass that is looking into wind energy issues as their thesis, and it's dumbfounding. The former Liberal government, they basically were so excited and enthusiastic about wind power that they decided they were going to skip due diligence and process of engaging, especially at the local level, and just kind of force it on people because we have to move fast. Well, sometimes, most times, in complex systems, when you try to speed it up, you actually slow it down to a point where there's huge resistance, because to make these things happen, it has to resonate locally. And this is very much consistent with what Stephen Hill was saying yesterday. It is through local action that you have global impact. Back to my fishies. You took off my fishies. I really like my fishies. Next time ask me, okay? But that's the way it unfolds.
I'm just going to go to Suresh and then you, and then.
So I agree that local changes, local initiatives bring change, but I also think in this equation that we're talking about, we've had great examples of, from Ray, for example, the Wild Rock outfit and the Carpet Company. Those are obviously good changes. Another very huge part of this equation, and one which is really swaying, are the multinationals, which have acquired sometimes well-deserved reputation. However, they command more often than not significant market share, and small changes within how they provide products through their long reach can make huge changes in sustainability in the world. And I think that institutions like this, I'll tell you a very short story. When I got out of school, Monsanto offered me a job. And I didn't know who Monsanto was really until Linda Slavin, I'll say his wife, called me up and said, "Fresh, do you know who these people are?" And I called them back up and said, "I can't work for you, you're horrible." Well, initially said, "We'll sue you because we had this search thing and you agreed and, we signed up for it." Well, I had a motorcycle and a cat, so I'm sure they didn't have anything to take, so it didn't sue me. Skip forward 25 years, and we actually work with them. And the reason I'm telling that story is that we need to add lenses when we want to have change. If Pepsi starts making pop bottles that are 100% biodegradable and from renewable resources, that's a significant impact on the world. So in this conversation, of all the other pieces, I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that multinationals, first of all, they're also besotted by the same things that the Lalas are. We have significant issues with skilled labor over the next decade that are going to get much worse in the other decades. Of all the jurisdictions that we look at that are industrialized, including Canada, we have negative population growth. The only place that we have a positive population growth with respect to the growing labor market is Africa, which has a level of grade 3 education and dealing with 65% AIDS. So they're dealing with the need, the tragic need for labor. They all recognize this and articulate it. All of them that are resource-based understand that their raw materials are under threat. And all of them are watching marketplaces change as consumers at local levels are beginning to develop changing tastes and more responsive tastes. So I believe the multinationals should not be that relevant.
Yeah, Suresh, I think there's some really exciting examples. I mean, look at some of the global industries that you normally think are mostly dirt bags or whatever, and you look at global garment manufacturers and retailers, for example, and think of Patagonia, right? The world's largest B corporation, whose whole business model, in a global sense, is built right around that, and it is the basis of their financial success. It's how they actually differentiate and compete successfully by contributing in a really important way. And they've got a kind of scale and scope that no local business or organization would ever have, for sure.
But I think one also needs to begin to change the social license for business. And that's beginning I'm looking at the pipeline discussion that's occurring in Western Canada. And there's huge talk about social license. And so Indigenous people are coming to the table and beginning to to say, well, hang on just a moment here, you can't do what you did in the past as well. You have to have some benefit, right, to the community. It has to be sustainable, right, to the environment has to be consistent with our values, right, as well. So I think engaging in a conversation about social license, I think, is also extremely important, right? And then that hasn't been part of our education. I keep coming back to this theme again, right, of education, not because I'm an educator, but because the educational institution is extremely powerful, right, as well. We train the people who work in the multinational corporations.
Absolutely. I just want to jump in. I don't know how many folks were able to be here for the Canadian Boreal Forest Agreement. We're on campus in September. Apparently we didn't advertise very well. Sorry about that. Canadian Boreal Forest Agreement is basically the biggest conservation product in the world, or project in the world. And it involves over a dozen of the biggest, most evil forestry companies who basically pulled up stakes around 3-4 years ago and says, that's it. We don't want to go to war with the NGOs. We actually want to work with them. It took them a long time to actually convince the NGOs to work with them. And basically we're talking about a national park that extends through the herd migration of caribou all across Canada. Right? This is the largest ever. And these folks are sitting down and they're working with the NGOs. To your point, Suresh, there are a lot of NGOs that said, over my dead body, or am I going to work with these folks? I will not walk into a Walmart. I will not work with this forest company. So mindsets have to be changed on both sides. But to their credit, these are the largest forestry multinationals. They were able to develop a new business model that extended their cycle in terms of when they're going to see profits a good 50 to 60% beyond their existing threshold to say, this is a sustainable business model, and yes, we will stay away from aging forests. There's a lot of work to do, in particular the way this initiative is or is not properly engaging First Nations. And this is about the issue of our national need to revisit license to operate and who we find leadership around.
I think the interface example is really important, but I would love to know if you see that being maybe used by retailers in maybe 10 to 15 years' time, or what else retailers can be doing today to really look at sustainability besides retrofitting products, looking at supply chain efficiencies or energy efficiencies.
I think Emily's got something to say about that.
So you tell the bakery story.
No, you tell the bakery story. Go ahead.
So there's this bakery in Harlem, New York City, or like in New York State, and I think they really have to people the community. And so what they've done is they create brownies, and they they're in the business of giving people employable skills. So they're not in the business of making brownies to survive by what they do. So they call out to the community, if you need a job, come work for us. And they take everyone's resume, put it in chronological order, and they bring them in and they bring them and put them around within the company and give them different skills. And then they also try to move them up within the company as well, and then work with them to move out so they can bring more people in. Now they're looking to expand that, and what have they done? They now supply those brownies. Every brownie in the Ben & Jerry's ice cream is made from that plant. So they've been able to connect with multinational companies to then provide and offer more opportunity. And I think that's also a revolution in trying to, look after a corporation, looking after the community, building employable skills, and then moving those people out into to bigger jobs where they can impact the community to then as well. But then also partnering with larger companies to make that continuous. That's an option.
To see a student who knows the case study 2 years after. That's so. It was worth coming this morning.
There are so many ideas that we could talk for days about. My background is community development. I've always worked with nonprofits, so never in the business world. But I was thinking about how much nonprofits are learning in one area, it's in response to your question about the idea about barriers and how to engage the community and how to break down those barriers. And where we're working in the field I do a lot of starting up of nonprofits, starting up programs, projects, things like that. So I guess I'm a social entrepreneur, something like that. And there's a new kind of thinking coming around about strategic planning, and it's out of a center run by Hildy Gottlieb, and she's down in the States. And it's really about starting with the vision and that why that's way off there in the horizon. Why are we doing this in the very end? So starting with that vision and kind of working backwards, what are the steps that it takes to achieve that vision? And when you start with the why, and I think Apple is quite good at starting with the why and going backwards. But if you start with the why, then you can share that vision with the entire community and bring people on board in a different way than you could if you were just starting with the looking down at yourself, your own little organization, what are we doing? And we want to get to be a better organization, or we want to get to be a more successful organization. If instead you're looking for way down off there on the horizon, why? Because we want to connect people to nature. Oh, actually, in my case, I run a nonprofit called Focus on Nature, bringing kids out into nature using photography. And the why is really so they're more connected to the environment and they care about the environment and actually work to protect it. So if I talk that up in my community and I say, this is what we're doing, what do you feel about the earth? What are your concerns? You bring people in more. If you're just talking about what you do as an individual organization, other people aren't going to come around with you. But the more you share that big picture vision, the more people you get on board and those barriers will come down. And that's what I see.
Well said.
And I'd love if you want to add comments to that from your own experiences.
I think you answered it perfectly. No, but I resonate a great deal, and I think that one of the things that Dalal was raising, and especially Ray was highlighting, the way forward lies in much more collaboration between the different sectors and much more cross-pollination. There is a growing list of Fortune 100 companies who go out and recruit NGOs to come sit on their boards for the same reasons that Dalal was saying. And it becomes part of their business plan in terms of doing that. And it's new organizational practices, new organizational structures that are moving forward in terms of, and actually, David, I actually think it's reflecting more of a systems understanding of what being in business is, and the expanding sense of where we find different sources of value.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the line between NGOs and businesses is going to be evaporating, and one of the things you'll know in your world is that it's harder and harder to find the resources externally, and that you've got to somehow stand on your own feet more as an NGO, and that's just exactly what every business is facing. Like your comment, and going to the why is something that really works well in the business world too. One of the tricks we do sometimes when we're really trying to get to the root issue of what we're doing is asking why 5 times. So you ask why, and then you ask why to your answer, and then you ask why to that answer, and you keep drilling down and try to get to the base that you're standing at. So I'd like to comment. Thanks.
Just a couple more folks, you've been, and then you.
So I really resonate with Azad with the way you described it. The root is about the values and how to give value to stuff. And also with the new housing, where you talk about economic system, it is a way of living and engaging that. My question is, what if I play that here. What if you engage with a community where they actually value the material more than the experience, opposite to what Ray said? What if, because in the IGPC formula, what really scared me is they give 7,500 as an income, which is so much lower than the average income per capita in Canada, but so much higher than so many other parts of the world. Is it the assumption that we're all talking about is because we already so saturated with material comfort in this area of the world that we can't think about moving beyond it? how could we move the conversation in the part of the world where they dream about the material? How can we do that? How can I come and say, no, you want the wrong thing? When they are bombarded with American Western cultures and other comfort, and it is the right for them to want that. How can I say that they want the wrong thing? And move them in the direction that they're trying to do.
I think that's such a really important thing to flag. For me, I would flag that fundamentally as that the issues that we're looking at, that's the spaghetti, are not things that have one answer at all. It's each context has its own distinct answer. The pieces that we looked at, for example, fundamentally engaging deep human meaning and deep human aspirations, those fundamental ones, I mean, that's everywhere, right? That's what life is, right? And finding solutions that are functional and sustainable in a particular place and a particular time, right? So each particular place is going to have a different way that it does it. Of course, the way not of course, but I mean, the way the affluent, in one post-industrial affluenza, people going, I got so much shit, it's actually stressing me out, I gotta take drugs because I can't even fit my car in my garage because I got too much junk in it, right? Well, you know, that's a very, very specific window on it. Certainly what is meaningful and functional in a context like that is going to be very different than the kinds of ones. So I think it's just, this is looking at this as something where there's whatever, 1,000 points of light idea, right? Just many different approaches.
Thanks. I'm conscious of time. A couple last quick questions or comments. So
Yes.
Has actively talked about, and his famous quote is that the power is in the hands of the consumers.
Yeah.
And that the consumers not only do these cards before they go and buy something, because they're not going to tolerate certain injustices. So something to think about. But my question is, for the panelists, from your research and experience and work experience, how do you see the interplay between the social enterprises, the government, and NGOs currently working? What are the deficiencies in here, and what do you see the vision of this interplay of them working together as we move forward?
I have a very short answer to that complicated question, and that is, we should talk about this over beer this afternoon.
well, I don't think we can beat that comment. So I'm going to suggest that we wrap up, and I would like to thank the panelists for coming out today. I'd like to thank you for participating.